As Governor-General of Canada, I have the solemn responsibility of being an honorary witness to the truth and reconciliation process, and so does my wife Sharon. At events at Rideau Hall and across Canada, we've heard survivors bravely share the devastating impacts that residential schools have had on their lives, families, and communities. And we've heard them speak of the betrayal of education that was residential schooling. But we've also heard something else from the survivors and Truth and Reconciliation commissioners. We've heard them say that education, learning, offers Indigenous people and communities the best hope of rebuilding and restoring themselves to their rightful place at the heart of our society. Our hope lies in engaging young Indigenous people in a constructive dialogue about learning and in showing an unwavering commitment to respect and inclusiveness. And when I say our hope, I mean hope not only for Indigenous communities, but for Canada and Canadians. We need to listen to what Indigenous and non-Indigenous young people have to say about education. We also need to recognize that every community is unique and that one size does not fit all when it comes to learning. We need to focus on excellent teaching and on language and culture, because students can't learn without knowing who they are and where they come from. Education has been a personal passion and a professional preoccupation of mine for 50 years. With a quality education, all Canadians, including Indigenous people, are more likely to enjoy a better quality of life. And if we are serious about fairness, equality, and simple human justice, we must work together to improve educational opportunities for all. I want to thank the Rideau Hall Foundation for having convened a diverse group of First Nation, Métis, and Inuit students from all provinces and territories in May 2016 to give them a space to share their experiences and find solutions. Let's now listen to what they had to say.
The elders that have been asked to participate in this group conference that is going to be on for the next few days.
Participating in these, sharing my voice, sharing my experience, sharing my hopes, my dreams with other people, with other peers my age, helped me to grow and to empower other youth around me.
You know, whatever good you do to one another will come back to you 100-fold, and I believe that with all my heart. And I think that just goes to show, you know, like the story there that, you know, we are resilient people. You know, we may have tough times, but it's the circle that will keep us strong.
Conference has been absolutely amazing. I've made connections that I would have never thought I would have made, and learned about other cultures other than Métis. We've had Inuit, other First Nations groups, just absolutely extraordinary.
Going through this, and then we realized that there's no facilitate question 2, no facilitate question 3, and no facilitate question 4.
This is just for your information, and you can use it because it's best practices, right?
Why do you say that?
Right. So yeah, just generate some conversation about what youth leadership is.
I think hearing the youth, you know, their perspective and how they learn, I think it'll really shape the way, you know, we do education in the future. So I think, you know, if we're going to be teaching them, let's ask them. You know, I think that's the important thing.
Gwe, Deluisi Gabalin Johnston, Medalasabanai Jalasigum, a Riddle Ganamasi Ellison Bernard Memorial High School, Rad Leawi Eskisoni. It's fun to be reminded that you're not the only Indigenous person, or Mi'kmaq people, like that's my culture, doing what you're doing in your community. So it's cool to know that I'm not the only one trying to have a voice for Indigenous people. They're all here doing the same thing, so it's nice. I think my ultimate ideal for changes in my community has to do a lot with culture and language. So as of right now, there's a new immersion school that opened up in my school, and it's from grades K to 4. And right now at that school, all they speak is our language, which is Mi'kmaq. And I think my ultimate goal is to have a school that can, go from grades K to 9 or K to 12 even, and for all the school to speak Mi'kmaq.
When I was 4 years old, I was fortunate enough to be enrolled in the Mi'kmaq immersion program. So from kindergarten to grade 3, we were all taught in Mi'kmaq how to read, write, and speak in our First Nation language, as well as we were taught about our culture and some of the traditions. So we were taught also how to dance in Mi'kmaq and drum in Mi'kmaq, do the Mi'kmaq prayers. So I believe that strengthened me to become, to feel as I'm a leader in my community. And also I think my classmates might feel the same who graduated from that program.
In my opinion, I believe that made her smarter, it made her stronger, not only as a regular person, but as a Mi'kmaq woman. So, looking upon her, she's a graduated immersion, and she's continued school, and she finished, and she graduated in grade 12 with a 98 average. So, those are definitely goals that I look up to.
Something funny about my sister, I guess, is that she has a loud laugh.
Today I realized the real value in our youth. They're the ones who are a thermometer of our communities. How our youth are is how our communities are in the adult world.
It's not by chance we have 40-some% graduation rates, some of the lowest across the country. And where in Nova Scotia, we took over jurisdiction on education, having the confidence, and we have the highest graduation rates in the country right now, which are 87%. And people would be so scared to take over jurisdiction on education. Well, Nova Scotia has, and we've actually had very positive results out of it. And I think a lot of schools across the country that have taken First Nation control over First Nation education are seeing the same results. But it's something that we still have to show people across the country that don't be scared of it, embrace it.
I really wish I can speak my language because there are elders who can only speak Inuktitut and not English, so I can't understand them, so I'd have to have a translator with me if I couldn't understand them. I can understand a few words, but if I could speak it, that'd be great. I really think that they should start teaching the cultures in high school because as you grow older, the culture's dying down. In elementary school, you're taught a lot, and there should be more Inuit teachers who should be teaching Inuktitut and not only English teachers. And yeah. So we do have Inuktitut classes, but we aren't taught Inuktitut. We're just coloring and not doing anything and not learning. So I'd really like to change that.
Yeah, I believe that learning your own language gives you a very deep sense of pride. That's learning your language and your culture makes you proud of who you are, and it gives you that identity. And I think that for the success of education, that's what Indigenous people need. They need to have that background in their culture and in their language. That way they know who they are and they can identify themselves as Indigenous, and they can be proud of that instead of being ashamed of that.
I understand where adults may say, well, you're not going to be successful if you learn your language, which is absolutely frustrating. So do we as adults make that decision for our youth who are asking for, we want our language. We want to know who we are, And I think more and more people are starting to realize that once we find out and accept and learn about our own identities, which were, attempted to be taken away from us, we're starting to emerge as a stronger people.
Instead of them taking French every year, they can take Mi'kmaq. Yeah.
sometimes in high schools, especially with not too many First Nations, or universities which have like even fewer percentages, that sometimes preconceived ideas that deans have or principals have can kind of deter us, whether they are aware they have the preconceived ideas or not, because sometimes they're not even intentionally being not accepting. They just don't understand something, whereas something we don't feel comfortable with discussing or something like that.
That we know that our students, our Indigenous students, not just Indigenous, but also our allies, our the Canadians, our friends, our families, to ensure that they're also getting that trueness, the wholeness of what Indigenous peoples are, their culture, way of life, and what they have to offer and share.
I'm here today because I want to learn about my culture and other people's culture. Like, that's a big thing, and I love to make new people, like make new friends.
We've thought of joining Indigenous youth and non-Indigenous youth together in workshops to communicate, get together, just share cultures pretty much. And then that would expand, the non-Indigenous youth would go talk to their friends, Indigenous youth would talk to their friends, hopefully sort of link everyone together.
Miigwech! And like, rise up, like, be energetic about it. Rise up, hands in the air.
1, 2, 3, rise up!
So at Manitoulin, they came up with their declaration, which I find is so empowering and so honest, and I think it's so deserving, and is a priority for our Chiefs Committee on Education.
I grew up with the Aundeck. Back then, this was our only source of light, eat, only way to cook our food and dry our clothing. I have a bigger one when I'm camping. If I put it on at night, it can be on all night, through the night. Kulak is very important to us. It's part of our history, and it was attended to by the women, and I grew up.
We used a traditional consensus model to author a final declaration and recommendations that we believe will help improve education outcomes for all Indigenous youth.
Our recommendation was to deliver mandatory training on culture, knowledge, and history to all Canadian teachers before they go into the schools. Design a national core curriculum for all Indigenous and non-Indigenous students.
One of our young people said, I want to be the last generation that experiences this. And it was a kind of a line in the sand type of comment, like we have to stop this and we have to stop it now in terms of, you know, injustice, in terms of focusing on what Indigenous youth need in their educational experience.
Education is very important to us, and we here at Six Nations know that we have the capability and we have the expertise, we have the experienced people here that we can provide our own Indigenous education.
In Nunavut, we have consultants that are starting to work on the curriculum of residential school, the experience. And I always tell them that I think it's good that if they have the knowledge, because a lot of them, not just teachers, but social workers, everybody else that go up to work in our communities, come in and they say, what's wrong with you people? You know, they don't know the history and the abuses that have happened.
I know that racism is still very much alive and well, and that, you know, our youth are experience that within the school systems. So, you know, I said, well, we got to change this system. You know, we gotta educate everyone, not just First Nations, Indigenous peoples, but also non-Indigenous peoples. You know, we got to have a good relationship.
It feels to me that we've gotten to the point in Canadian society as we have a good idea that there is injustice, there's recognition that there's injustice, that there needs to be change that needs to happen. What we're not sure about is the how.
Educating about, with, by Indigenous people, from Indigenous perspectives. Indigenous knowledge is valid knowledge. I hear people talk about Indigenous students need Indigenous teachers. And I always say all students need Indigenous teachers.
Bringing strength to the people. And Indigenous languages, there's no real word for law.
Indigenous education has suffered from chronic underfunding, and in fact the commitments we've made have not been fulfilled. When on-reserve schools are receiving on average 30% less funding than off-reserve schools, this is simply unacceptable in Canada.
We realize, and everybody realizes, that First Nations have to be the creators of their own education programs. And if it's in Mohawk, if it's in Iroquois, if it's in Mi'kmaq, you have to have people involved in their own education systems in order for us to achieve success. Money is one part. Doing a process the proper way is the most crucial, important part. Our stories, our survivors shared their stories. So we know there's a lot of effects that caused us to have lack of funding in schools, to have a child going to school every day may be very smart, but they're living in a very moldy, overcrowded house. So they're not in a great environment for them to pursue. And yet we're trying to compare the two kids on and off reserve when there's no comparison.
There's been this false idea that, well, you know, there aren't issues here, so we're going to, you know, really take our resources and invest our time and energy in other parts of the world. And I think we've got to shift that focus where the philanthropic sector is realizing real responsibility and opportunity for their own personal growth and contribution of the philanthropic sector here in Canada.
One thing that I wish from them is for them to listen. Truly listen to what we're saying, because it is affecting us and it will affect the next generations to come. And I really hope that they are able to support us in our declaration, because I find it something that could really benefit Indigenous youth for now and also for the future.